Thoughts never spoken. Feelings never prices. Truth. Thoughts. Truth never voiced. Welcome to the Unspoken Voices Podcast with Chuck Ellis, where the rubber meets the road and the unspoken finds its voice. This is more than a podcast. This is a space for the thoughts you've been holding in, the conversation you've been avoiding, the feelings you've been struggling to explain. It's a platform for honesty, a safe place for courage, and voice for those who haven't found theirs yet. Here we don't run from real life. We face it. Whether you're calling in to share your story or listening because you're not ready to speak yet, this platform was built for you. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about what's really going on. This is the Unspoken Voices Podcast.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening. We're here at another week of the Unspoken Voices Podcast with Chuck Ellis. I am your honorable host. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, for coming on this segment. It's been a long week. Just to recap, I actually went to Baltimore last week, and unfortunately, I had to attend the funeral for my uncle Eddie Scott. Shout out to him and rest in peace to my uncle again. Shout out to my family, Scott family, all the friends and relatives who came out. I'd like to again thank y'all for coming. Thank you for individuals who sent your condolences, the text messages, the phone calls. I appreciate all that. For a loss in anyone's family is a gain in the family of the Lord if you believe, and as you believe, for those who do believe. With anything comes along change. And over this last week, I saw a few things and I've spoken to a few people, and I really wanted to dive into the direction of the Unspoken Voices podcast. So I wanted to let everybody know that this is not just a podcast. And this is more personal to me than anything. So if y'all give me a minute to gather everything together so I can address it and deal with it in a format that is conducive to the point I'm trying to get across. I tell everybody that I'm a poet and I have books written, things of that nature. But I had to backtrack because the information I gave was just vague. You can't say one thing and allow a person to just jump on it without giving some meat or giving some introspective into what's going on. So tonight, I'm introducing a new personal segment. It's called The Story Behind the Words with Chuck Ellis. This segment is not just about books or it's not just about books or commercial selling of books and things of that nature. It's about the life behind the words. This segment is about poetry, mental health, trauma, survival, and purpose. For me, poetry was one of the ways in which I dealt with my emotions. When the things that I didn't want to say out loud, I was able to write them. And tonight, I want to really begin with my first book, so y'all understand where I'm coming from where my life comes from, because everything that I've written in all of my books are 99.99%, 100% accurate to my life. All my poetry, everything refers to everything that I've faced, I've seen, I've witnessed. So my poetry is not just books of collections of poetry. My books are an element of memoir. It's not like a memoir. It's a life story. So this is my book, Beneath My Eyes, poetry by Chuck Ellis. And poetry is not just something I wrote. It was one of the ways I survived in my own mind when I did not know how to explain what I was feeling. And before I even thought about the technical thing of mental health and understood what mental health was, I was writing at an early age and an old, and well, when I got older, I was writing at an age that I didn't even explain, didn't understand that I was doing it as a mental health tool. And I needed a lot of mental health, to tell you the truth. My life was filled with a lot of trauma, turmoil, um, abuse, recklessness, bad behavior, crime, those type of things. I mean, and we're gonna get into all of that, because I think that as we dive into these things, it's real particular that we touch a lot of elements. So this segment is not just, it's not limited to one book. See, Beneath My Eyes is just one book. This is where it began, see, but it's not where it's going to end. I have 4 books, and I'm currently in the process of getting ready to publish my next book. So this episode is more personal than commercial, and I'm not just asking the community or the fans or anybody that's listening. I'm not asking y'all to just look at the book. I want you to understand. I'm inviting you to understand the person behind the content of the book. I'm looking at you to understand the mental aspect that I'm dealing with or have dealt with, have been dealing with, still going to continue to deal with for the rest of my life. This conversation is between you and I. This conversation is more personal than commercial. I want to say this again. This conversation is more personal than commercial. And people have to understand this. When you come online and you come on live and you come on things and you have podcasts and you have a responsibility to the public, those personal intentions tend to sometimes get overshadowed by commercial direction. So I don't want to overshadow that. I want to stay in my element. So let's talk about Beneath My Eyes. Beneath My Eyes, the book. It's not just about what I saw, it's about what I carried. Beneath the Eyes is not about what I saw in life. It's about what I carried. It's about what I survived. It's about what I observed and what I lived through beneath the surface. See, a lot of people can look into your eyes and still never understand what's beneath them. And that gets me into the element of the topic. The topic, beneath my eyes. They say the eyes are the windows to the soul. So when you're able to look beneath someone's eyes, what are you looking at? You're looking at the depths of their soul. And that's a real different element to be able to release into the public, to share that portion of yourself with individuals when you're not even used to talking to people about your own struggles. So So that's what I get in. That's what I get into, right? And the thing about it is, it's about how solitude can teach you to reflect on everything that you've done in yourself. Because a lot of times in solitude, you have this is what I say. In solitude, you have no one else in the room but you and God, or your creator, the ones you choose to believe. It's no one else in that room. So solitude and darkness forces you in a condition to be able to deal with those elements of yourself in one form or another. So to me, writing poetry became my freedom when I had no freedom physically. It became my freedom to be able to have my mind indulge in other things that in a lifetime I was always concealed and captive to. So Beneath My Eyes was my first book, my first clear connection of a book. And one of the elements is I want to explain to y'all is the freedom of the mind. And I'm saying it again, the freedom of the mind. See, a person can be physically free and still mentally locked up. Real freedom begins when the mind stops living in bondage. So I would ask the audience, I'll ask yourself is, are you free? As if I am myself and I said I'm free. And what does freedom of the mind mean to you? To me, freedom of the mind allows me to engage in a different train of thought. It allows me to be able to see beyond the box. Freedom of the mind allows me to make decisions that could ultimately affect me physically, to give myself an opportunity ahead of destruction. And that's what the freedom of the mind comes across. But I wanted to explain to y'all that when I talk about the book, and please bear with me for a minute, I had I had my introduction in the book, and I spoke about that. But in the introduction, I'll give you a brief clip of it, and I tell you, I said, and this is a excerpt, a quote straight from the book. Okay, it says, to start off with, it says, due to ill fate and the unfortunate events of circumstance, I was placed in a position where I was compelled to face myself. And while having ample amount of time of solitude, I spent considerable amounts of time reflecting on my past, present, in order to prepare for my future endeavors. It is in this capacity that my talent to write poetry has been discovered on a conscious level. And as I move forward, I read a quote from Frederick Douglass that has said, without struggle, there can be no freedom. To me, this quote refers to the physical bondage of slavery and the effects that it had on Black people. While pondering on these words, the voiceless walls that I often face projected images of what stories they held within. Now, decades after this quote was written, the purpose of his message caused me to search deep within my soul as I sit in this cubicle. That's deep. That's just a part of my concept going into the book. And To read a little further, it says freedom has been a hard-fought concept to actually grasp mentally or achieve physically. Freedom has escaped us due to the social, racial, economical, and political boundaries that we as a people have surrounded ourselves with and succumbed to. Through my poetry, I am able to experience various aspects of freedom from those elements that have kept me bound for years. My fight through self-imposed oppression is harsh, and I've learned to appreciate having to struggle. By embracing the struggle, I've conquered self-imposed oppression. And that's just an excerpt from the book. And this book serves as my testament to what I've been through, what I've done in life. And I opened up and I advertised the fact that my first poem came out to be um, 30 to Life. It, it's abstract, but I wrote it and I put it there as the opening poem to the book because I want individuals reading it to look at the concept first and then look at the contents or the context later. The reason why I say that is this. In your mind, when it says 30 to life, the first thing you think about is what? The first thing you think about is prison. That's what our minds have been trained to do. Our captive minds have been trained to do. The first thing we think about when we talk about something that we even have a generic reference to what could be incarceration. 30 to life. Boom. First thing you do is think about, hey, man, that's prison, man. This guy talking about another prison story. Nobody want to hear that. Nah. This ain't about a prison story. It's about something much deeper. It's about a sentence, but an emotional sentence. An emotional sentence. Let's take a little step back on that. Hey, welcome, Shay. Thank you for tuning in, man. Um, I'm gonna go to the aspect of what is an emotional sentence. That's a life sentence within itself. And this poem really moves you through the life stages: infancy, childhood, adolescence, teenage years, adulthood, and finally, what comes after adulthood. It's a revival, right? So some people are serving a 30 to life emotionally sentence from the things that happened to them before they even understood what trauma was. So an emotional sentence is something that a lot of us have been in, have still dealing with for the rest of your life. So let me get into the poem because I can't ask y'all to read my work if I don't read it to you. I want you to be able to engage in where I'm going with not only just my poetic work, but I want you to be able to engage into the work that's going to be happening through my poetry on this podcast. Like I said, it's the Unspoken Voices Podcast. So let's speak, let's talk about it. 30 to life. As an infant, it all began. 30 to life, the emotional trauma of a man. Nurtured, delicate, precious, innocent, and pure. A toddler being neglected, man, how could this be? Corruption is growing on this tree. At this point, he should be playing in the stand. 30 to life, the emotional trauma of a man. Perceptive, sociable, vulnerable, discouraged, and blemished. Adolescent years spent trying to stay out of sight. Sounds, mother being heard at night. In search of a helping hand, 30 to life, the emotional trauma of a man. Frightened, oppressed, distressed, abandoned, abused. The teenager matured beyond his years. Hidden abuse kept from his peers. To restrain the rage, he must make a plan. 30 to life, the emotional trauma of a man. Vindictive, manipulative, mischievous, arrogant, and violent. An adult relapsing to a past forced to live, not wanting to repeat what was instilled. Suicidal tendencies produced plans to cut off the guilty hand. 30 to life, the emotional trauma of a man. Regression, depression, isolation, condemnation, and mutilization. Throughout his life, he will rise and fall. Only the Creator can answer his call. Eating from the spiritual garden and replenishing this barren land. 30 to life, the emotional trauma of a man. Wisdom, faith, patience, love, and peace. Completely developed and all grown up. The provisions were given, and full is his cup. With enough to sustain life, he took his stand. 30 to life, the revival of a man. That poem is called 30 to Life. Now, y'all see I was counting on my hand the elements or the characteristics that goes with each stage of life. So when you think, when you look at the poem, which I hope you will look at it and review it again, if you look at the poem, it's 5 characteristics to each stage that I put there, and I put it purposely so that all those characteristics came up to be a total of 30. And it speaks a lot about trauma shaping a person. What happens to a child that does not receive protection as they need it? How early can trauma begin shaping a person? Or how can childhood wounds show up later in adulthood? These are some of the questions that this poem will cause you to reflect on and think about the answers. And sometimes the man people judge is still carrying the child that nobody protected. I'm gonna say it again. And this poem describes a lot, but let's talk about the first stage. And I'm telling you, it says sometimes in life, People judge the child that was not protected, that's now become a man. And you don't understand the elements that it took him to go through even to get in that position. So as we move forward, when we talk about adolescence and seeing too much too soon, a lot of children today in the adolescent years, they see too much too soon. Maybe I saw too much too soon in my life. And what does the household trauma do to a young person? Well, a lot of young men get labeled angry before anybody asks what they survived. And maybe it's too late to ask the question because they already they already acted out on what they survived and they dealing with it. So fear plays a great part in a childhood. Some children suffer in silence, as I did. Fear played a part in a lot of things that I dealt with. But my fear turned into anger. My anger turned into aggression. So it wasn't that I feared the people on the outside. Sometimes you got to fear the people on the inside. And when you fear the people on the inside, the outside becomes a little bit easier to deal with when you want to lash out because you have no fear of nothing, no circumstance, no fear of consequences or anything that could be going on. It's going to be lashed out, and you don't fear because you don't think about it. Because right now, your mental capacity has changed. So that is a key element to everything that came a part of me growing up. And when you address, and you're a teenager, and you're addressing you being around your peers, like a lot of my people that I know, they're like, man, Charles, I never knew you've been through so much in your life because I never let y'all know. All y'all knew is that I was different. All some people knew is that, you know what, this boy is out there. I see potential in him, but his actions are doing something way beyond. It's going to negate anything that his potential could actually become. And that goes even deeper. So when I get into adulthood, relapsing into a past, what does it mean to be an adult still reacting to childhood wounds? Wow. Come on now. Yeah, hey, look, I'm talking deep because this is personal. So I don't want to bore nobody, nothing like that, but I'm making this concerted or dedicated effort in this particular portion of my podcast to direct the attention to the seriousness of what's happening in society today, has happened in the past, is happening now, that's forming a lot of these children, that's going on out in the streets. Because I've been there. And that's why this whole thing is personal to me, because a lot of my family members, a lot of my friends are being subjected to the elements of society that have been overlooked or not being addressed. But I know what it is because I lived inside of it. I became a product of it. And I had to fight, and I still fight with emotional and mental elements not to be able to relapse to that childhood, to be able to deal with things in life that I've overcame. And sometimes you never overcome them, you just put them in the proper perspective and you're able to deal with them more functionally. And it's not overcoming them, it's just dealing with them in a more functional level. And if that's what you call overcoming, then so be it. I'm still overcoming every day because in an instant, you can flip back to something that people don't even want to see. And you also can control that too, if you think about it. So, why do some young people learn silence as survival? That's a good question. See, I'm popping these questions out here, and some of the answers I don't even have myself. So, if y'all got some answers to me, you can let me know. Or if you got a comment, because I know people listening. Oh, what's up, Maurice, my man Earl? But I want to take a little minute to break out here. But I know people are listening and people are hearing what I'm saying. And as I look at some people in the chat, I like to thank everybody for coming into the chat. Shank Rock, man, you've been a stir supporter, man. I'm glad you came in. I'm 20 minutes in on it, right? Um, but everybody that's in the chat is showing support. You're more than welcome to ask questions as I go along because you may be dealing with something or a family member may be dealing with something that is reflective of what I'm speaking on right now. And if that be the case, then pop the question there or shoot a comment so I see it, then I can stop for a second, maybe address it or give you some insight just from my personal perspective. I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving you no legal advice or nothing like that. I'm just trying to tell you that I can give you something coming from where I've been, right? Water. I need some water. Okay. Why is accountability a part of the healing process? When people go through rehab and things like that, they always got to go back and say what they did, and sometimes they got to go back and try to be accountable and talk to people. It's a funny story, but I ain't gonna get into it. But me and one of my people, we know about this are really bad. So in the poem, why does the poem end with revival? What changed in me? What role did faith and wisdom and patience turn out to be? What does it mean for a man to be rebuilt? Well, at this stage in my life, when I wrote this poem, you know, I was going through a lot, man. And when I wrote it, I was actually thinking about myself. That was in that closed room. So that's when I really started getting the self-actualization of what it's going to take not to be who I've always been. And some of it was when I got locked in that cell, the real cell. And I'll give y'all a brief thing. Check this out. I got locked up, right? Caught my sentence. And my first night, my first night I was going to the system, not just incarcerated. I'm talking about when I went out to the system. I was out Hagerstown, right? So I had a cell buddy named GI. And when I was a GI, yeah. So I was in cell with GI. And this guy, he was a Nation of Islam, right? He's Muslim. And I ain't know too much about the Nation of Islam. I ain't know too much about being Muslim or none of that kind of stuff, right? Nothing. It just wasn't me. But I knew I was hungry because when you leave DOC and they ship you off up into the mountains, take your clothes and all that kind of stuff. So I'm hungry. I didn't eat all day, and I wouldn't feel like eating anyway. So I get up. Well, I'm not used to being incarcerated. I, I ain't used to being locked up. But now I got all this time, and I'm like, dang, yo, you in jail for real? I'm like, all right, cool. So I get my bedroll, go to my cell or whatever. Boom, they lock the door. Push, door closed. All right. So at 4 o'clock or 4:30 in the morning, the door's hit. Boom. You get like maybe 2-3 minutes to get up and get out, if that. And the doors hit again. Doosh. And they close. And I'm like, yo, the door's closed. So G.I. look at me like, oh yeah, bro, you missed breakfast. I'm like, what? I'm like, what you mean I missed breakfast? So I'm ready to fight because I missed breakfast. And I'm hungry. So I'm mad. I'm mad as fire, dude. I'm like, yo, you made me mad. But he ain't make me miss breakfast. I missed breakfast. But that instance, I'm like, boy, this thing that got real. Well, it got real when I got my time. But when I got my time, it was like, man, where my mama at? But we'll get into that later. That's just a little brief story, man. How some of the things, it's just, to me, it's funny because now I can look back and be like, man, I wish this guy would have told me because I was so hungry. I wanted something to eat so bad, you know. And then maybe a couple days later or a day or so later, once I got to sit, I woke up one day. No, I woke up out my sleep. And when I woke up out my sleep, it would say maybe about, I don't know, about 2 o'clock in the morning. And I got up and I put my clothes on and stuff. And I'm like, I'm thinking I'm getting ready to go somewhere. Like I'm getting ready to go out to the club. It's in my mind, I was like going crazy or something. I'm like, I'm locked up. I got 20 plus years. So I'm looking like, yo, I'm getting ready to go. I'm ready to go outside. So I put my clothes on, I washed my face and everything. Now, mind you, the singing, I told the same thing. I'm really not paying attention to it. But I'm like, I'm getting ready to go. Like I'm in a dream. So I'm in the cell and I'm like, I'm dreaming. I don't know. I was physically woke, but I'm dreaming. And I'm like, yo, I'm getting ready to go out. I'm getting ready to go outside. And I don't even really, do I drink beer then? Yeah, I'm like, yo, I don't even really drink beer. But I'm like, yo, I'm going to go get me a little cold Budweiser or something, right? And then, boom, I had all my clothes on. Walked to the front of the cell door, which ain't nothing but a couple steps, and the door was locked. And I'm like, yo, the door locked. And I sat down in the little chair. Got a chair right there. I sat down in that chair for I know every bit of like 14 hours. I mean, I missed lunch, everything. I just sat in the chair with my clothes still on. Somebody said, man, what's wrong with you? Don't even talk to me. You know why? I'm in prison. That's crazy. I really realized I was in prison. So now it's time, Charles. It's time to have to deal with what's going on up there. And that's what I started. That's what I did. And I started dealing with it. And poetry and writing poems became an outlet and an escape for me to release things that was going on. And that's why in my books, everything in my books is true to life. A lot of people lie when they write stuff, like a lot of rappers they lie on. But when I write about what I actually lived through, what I actually see. And that's the thing. So my poems, they start, in this poem, it starts with trauma. And it don't end there. It ends with revival. Pain may be a part of the story. And pain may be a part of your story. But that pain don't have to be your final chapter. And even on this podcast, you're going to hear more about my story. But I don't just want you to hear my story. I want you to think about your own. What emotional sentence have you been surviving? What happened in your life years and years and years ago that still show up? You know? And if you out there, you want to say something, you can say something. If you out there serving an emotional or mental sentence, then say something. And I'm gonna say this again. What are you still carrying? Some people are not tired from today. And I'm gonna say this real slow so you understand something. Some people are not tired from today, but they're tired from carrying yesterday for too many years. That's a big statement because a lot of people say, man, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired. Well, are you tired from what you're going through now? Or are you tired of carrying what you've been through then? And you're still holding on to. There are important elements in my story that you can learn from. And as we move forward, I want to fully I'm going to address my writing. I'm going to address my writing and I'm going to use my writing because this is truth. I'm going to use my writing as elements to direct the conversation, to deal with the elements of mental health, to deal with just life in general. So tonight was just the beginning, just a small smidge, just the beginning of the story behind the words. Now we started off with a book Beneath My Eyes and the poem 30 to Life, the emotional trauma of a man. This is not about poetry, mind you. It's not about poetry. It's about mental health. It's about trauma. It's about survival. It's about revival. And in future segments, we're gonna bring some more on. And I want people to know that your voice matters. Your pain has purpose, and your story deserves to be heard just like mine. So please stay connected with me. Let's stay in tune. Let's dive into these elements so we can grow together. Stop you shaking my hand? Yeah. So, and hey, go pick up the book. Go on Amazon. Look it up. Beneath My Eyes. Poetry by Chuck Ellis. Pick up the book. Shoot me a question. Shoot me an inbox. If you see something in there that's interesting, you want to discuss, talk to me about it. Because right now we got a lot of children, a lot of young men, young women going through a lot of things in life. And I want you to know that I'm speaking from personal experience. You know, not only was I in the military, not only am I a poet, not only have I been incarcerated, not only have I been in the streets, what y'all call the streets, not only have I been in corporate America, business ownership, I'm coming from places that many people could never get to, could never come back from, could never deal with in all the elements. Almost lost my life behind bars. Double life in 20 plus years. Some people say some people are spiritually dead. You know, And I'm gonna get into that. I'll get into that part too. But like, it's things in life that people gotta live with that you just don't understand. Like I said, I got convicted for a murder. And people online, they talk about, oh, I'm gonna sling guns, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. But have you ever lived in a life where you saw a life leaving somebody? You gotta live with that for the rest of your life. And you gotta come back from that day after day after day. You don't just come back from it and say, I'm back. No, every day is a day that you gotta come back from everything. When you wake up, it's a whole nother day to get started. But sometimes you relive your whole life in a moment. And you gotta come back from it. Sometimes you got to live your whole life in a moment and come back from it. So, as I said before, this podcast, this platform, this segment, the information that I'm trying to disseminate, this ain't just commercial, it's personal. Because as I grow, I want somebody else to grow. As I develop, I want somebody else to develop. Because if I keep all of this to myself, I'm not doing no one service. Because I've come to find out, now I know, and y'all should know, life ain't nothing but a moment. I was starkly reminded of this. And I'm going to give him his flowers again. Bishop Elliott. Man, you reminded me of this. And not even the fact that you reminded me of this, you reminded me, say, hey, you stopped me in my tracks. Because I asked the question. I said, Charles, I said, yes. I said, people are watching you. That's a heavy burden when you put yourself out there in the public. But as people are watching me, I'm watching them too. But the one thing about people watching me, understand this. I'm going to be whoever I am. And I'm not going to be nothing different. I'm just going to grow. And there is no excuse to say that, oh, I'm not perfect or nobody's perfect. That was wrong. I thought about it. It was wrong. Because in the Bible, Job. In the Bible, Job was perfect, without fault. Or he had fault, but he knew how to repent for the fault. That's different. So now I had to back up as I learned and developed. And now I'm starting to develop even more. And I'm going to get into some things. And I didn't even fully dive into the whole element of 30 to life. I didn't even dive into the whole element of beneath my eyes. I just gave you a little bit of what's under the surface of it. And right now, I'm just giving you a little bit of what's under the surface of me. Got a lot going on. We got a lot to learn. We got a lot of things to do. This is my segment. This is my segment. So now, without that, I ain't going to end there. My next segment, the next couple things are coming up. The next thing is going to be coming up for me next week is when we following up, not this conversation, but I'm going to be following up with Flamon Williams. He's a historian. We want to talk about Black history. We want, hold on. I got a comment. As people, we were taught to keep everything within the walls that we occupied growing up. Now, let me slide that real quick before I get out of here, because it's on me to answer questions, right? Answer comment. And I was getting ready to get out of here. As people, we were taught to keep everything within the walls that we occupied growing up. That's true. That's true. We were taught that. But that's silence. That is people being manipulated to allow silent abuse to go unnoticed, because if it would be noticed outside, then the perpetrators will be responsible. So creating a culture of silence protects perpetrators from the public, because knowledge is everything. And when you are aware of something, you're responsible for it. And that's even in families. That goes from abuse, molestation, rape, anything that goes on. People are silent, and they teach a culture of silence inside of homes, whether you're black, white, Hispanic, Latino, Chinese, anything. They are culturally written on silence, where individuals are shamed for speaking truth outside of the home. Because when the home, when those elements become revealed, those perpetrators are responsible. That's where we go wrong at. If it's happening behind closed doors and it's hurting you, then speak on it. Because when you come from behind closed doors, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So, excuse me, I got allergies. But anyway, that's a big element. And it's going on right now. People are getting caught up in a lot of things, but don't nobody want to talk about it. And then when people talk about it, this was happening, this was going on. Nah. We should have talked about it back then. And then you think about some of the perpetrators. When something happened to the perpetrator, this person was a good person. This person was this. You can't even defend yourself for defending yourself. I'm saying it again. You can't defend yourself for defending yourself because you didn't speak out and it was held behind a closed door. So when things happen, you can't even say, well, this perpetrator did this. How am I supposed to know? Now we talking about the law of the land. It's different. You got the law of the land and you got the law of man. You know, like I say, I lived that, been through that, did that. Don't beat me in the dark. Because when I beat you in the light and I ain't talk about what you did in the dark, guess what? I'm just as guilty. Because nobody knows. That's another song. Nobody knows the trouble. Yeah, that's a song. But I'm not going to get into that because that's kind of funny. But no, I don't want to make light of a serious type of question. So hopefully that answers some things. And we'll dive into it more. Thank y'all for tuning in. This has been Chuck Ellis on Unspoken Voices Podcast. And remember, your voice matters, your pain has purpose, and your story deserves to be heard. See y'all next week, 7 o'clock.
This has been the Unspoken Voices Podcast with Chuck Ellis, where silence is broken, truth is spoken, and healing begins. So remember, your voice matters, your pain has purpose, and your story deserves to be heard. So until next time, stay connected, stay encouraged, and know that your voice is never alone.